Okay, a White Rose Maths Barvember bar modelling question. It's not a particularly difficult one, but it is a very nice one, I think, and certainly worth doing a video for. Right, Harry and Meg have some roses. 3/10 of the flowers are red roses, the rest are white roses. Harry gives 50% of the white roses away and buys 17 more red roses. And they now have 121 roses in total. We are asked then, how many roses did they have at the start? Now, I do try to, when I'm doing these videos, I do try to think how might someone that's not really so sure about using models, or, you know, someone in year 6 say, how might they approach this question? Okay, let's have a look. And the first bit they would read then is 3/10 of the flowers are red roses, the rest are white. So that probably might have you tempted to draw a single bar model. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that's 10. So I see that I'm working in tenths, and I'm going to draw a bar to represent all of the flowers. So that's all of the, oh my goodness me. Right, thank goodness for that. Okay. So can I do any better there? Not particularly. All right, so that's all the flowers. All right, and then we're told 3/10, 1, 2, 3 are red, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That means 7/10 are white. Okay, fantastic. All right, so that's you know, helpful. I now see that you know, the rest of white roses, that's 7/10. Great. But the next part says Harry gives 50% of the white roses away and buys 17 more red roses. And that's just going to be a little bit more awkward to do on this model, because I want to get rid of half of these. Well, okay, that's not too difficult, but adding 17 to here is a little more tricky. So I actually might think this model isn't really helping me very much. I'm going to change and do something different, which is the point I'm trying to make, is that the first model that you draw might not work. It might not represent quite what you want, or might not enable you to manipulate the information in the way that you want. So start again, approach it differently. So I'm now going to draw, okay, so here's one bar to represent my red roses, and these are 3/10. I know that these are 3 equal size portions. Okay, so I'll make that very clear there. Okay, and then white roses, we've got 7/10. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Right, so that's our 7/10, and now let's see what happens. Right, what are we told? Okay, Harry gives 50% of the white roses away. Okay, so 50%, so that's half of these he gives away. All right, so there's 7/10 here. That means 3.5 he's going to give away. So I'm going to cut this down the middle. And this is what is going to be given away. Okay, so it's quite helpful to keep labeling your model as you go along, otherwise you can forget what's going on. So it's really important. All right, so 50%, that's 50% is given away of the white roses. But we also add 17 red roses. Okay, so I'm going to add 17 here. I could just write it like that. I don't need to draw a block, and if I did draw a block, I'd have to keep in mind that these blocks, each of these blocks represents an equal size part. This block is equal to this block is equal to this block and equal to that, etc., I'd have to keep in mind that whatever I drew there was not in the same scale as this. I'm just actually going to leave that as add 17. So what else do I know? I know that after that has happened, they have 121 roses altogether. That's this bit here, so that's 121. Okay, so 121 includes all of this, okay, and this 17. It excludes that part. Okay, right, now when you've got bar models, it's always, what you're always seeking to do is to try and find where you do know what the size of things are in relation to everything else. This bit here is the tricky part. I don't know how this amount relates to everything else. So now I can see, though, if I took the 17 away from 21, I would be left with an amount that tells me all of this part. Let me just do this. So if I take the 17 away from 21, I would be left with the value of that part. And I do know that these are equal size pieces. This is half of this. So in fact, I'll make that clearer. I will divide everything else. So I was working in tenths, these are now 20ths, okay? These are all equal size portions, and if I take 17 away from 21, so I'm going to subtract 17, that gives me 104. I now know that the yellow portion here is equal to 104. All right, and now what I can do is work out what one of these portions is. Okay, and so we have got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. So I need to do 104. I need 104 divided by 13. And do you know what? I think it's going to be just as easy for me to guesstimate how many 13s, what I have to multiply 13 by to get to 104. I know that 13 times 10 is 130, which is quite a bit too much. So my guesstimate is going to be 8, and I'm just going to check that. So we're going to do 13 times 8. Okay, so 3/8, 24, and yes, indeed, we get 104. Okay, so 104 divided by 13 equals 8. And that means that each of these little blocks, that has a value of 8. Which tells me that each of these, which has 2 blocks, each of these has a value of 16. So each tenth, remember these were tenths, each tenth is 16. Okay, and let's go back to find out what we were asked. We were asked how many roses did they have at the start. Well, at the start they had 10 tenths, 1 whole. They had 10 tenths, and I know that 1/10 is 16, so 16 times 10 is 160. So how many roses did they have at the start? That's 160 roses, and I think that's quite a neat example. I do like this as a bar model. I think it did make it much easier to see what was going on. I hope that helped.